Yeah, brown and black community will save our community, yo.
We forced the
Truth.
genocide of blacks and Puerto Ricans together. It was always like that to me.
And I think in New York City happens a lot more often because we're all like herded into these projects that are like half Puerto Rican and half black historically. And you know, we always through proximity would commune with each other and we break bread with each other. We had a realization that I guess we were the same people, and or we knew we were the same people, and we were all sharing the same struggle, similar struggle. And when I travel across the United States and I see that there is a division between black and brown people in other places like Chicago, other places like California, in the middle of the country, it shocks me. And I try to understand why is that. And I know we're in the same economic situation, and I know they can see that. But there are still sort of like these land boundaries, invisible lines that exist that sort of keep people separate.
Black is black. Black is me, black is you, black is us, black is free, like 12, 14, 57.
Yes, sir.
To me, y'all, we all black women.
That's the thing I was gonna say, like, especially growing up in Harlem, I was black. I thought I was black. I knew I was black, and I pushed that forward. And like, you know, the whole cultural identity of being Latino to me, specifically, or Hispanic, I couldn't identify with that. I couldn't, like, because I didn't speak the language, so I was like, and I don't speak Latin either, so I couldn't like hold on to that as being my own. So I thought I was black. It wasn't until later that I really got in tune with like my Puerto Rican identity, what it means to be Puerto Rican, and you know, expand mentally in that regard. But I think it's black, but a lot of people also that we need to unify with don't, for some reason or another, see themselves as black, right? So they do identify themselves as being brown or being Latino, but I think like if you're the original man, if you're a yellow, brown, red man, you are here and you are black, and in the eyes of the white oppressor, you will always be black. You know what I mean? And I think we need to embrace that and embrace our blackness or our brownness or our redness or our yellowness or just our colors and just be like, yo, we're here and we're being oppressed collectively.
I've had to experience being put in positions and being judged like people who are not white, who are not able-bodied, who are not in great socioeconomic conditions and situations. And I'm not saying that by any means I've struggled like certain people have struggled, but I don't need to say that because I've struggled the way I've struggled. As an artist, I've experienced some things, but never have I experienced things until I started being a percussionist. Because taking my drums underground every day and pulling my drums up and down stairs has put me in a position of a lifestyle of where the clothes I wear to go underground, you know, they're just some regular clothes. I don't look like I have more money than anybody. In fact, I look like I have a lot less money. People look at me. Oftentimes I get people offering to give me money because they think that I don't have a home. They think that I'm just a troubadour, you know, or just somebody who's, you know, homeless, walking around with all his gear with him. And I find it fascinating that people just assume that I'm homeless. Unifying under the great commonalities of struggle as a human existence or a human race or as an artist group or as not people of different races, ethnic origins or skin tones or socioeconomic brackets, but just the struggle, just the art. So that's my thing. How can we have this conversation? How can we as white folks be more bold in the face of this conversation? And Tim Wise, and he's an anti-racist activist. He's a white man, and his thing is like, you know, let's not have a problem having these conversations. He's like, because what he finds a lot of white people will be like, and maybe some other folks too, but we'll just look at white folks because that's what he's talking about, what he's pointing towards, is that white folks are really afraid in general of having the race conversation because they're afraid of being wrong, they're afraid of being judged, they're afraid of being seen as racist. However, how do we escape racism when we grew up in this country? You know, we're all casually and unfortunately indoctrinated in our DNA with just a little bit of these racist ideals. However, what Tim Wise is saying is that don't worry about having the conversation, because chances are that person of color who you may be having that conversation with already thinks you are racist.
You need to more just like identify who's being oppressed, and just like to come together under that banner, like being oppressed. Yes, that's us. We should make a flag of the oppressed people, matter of fact.
People looking down on you when it comes to being a transporter with all this stuff, you know, and I see how hard it is for people that are needing and requiring wheelchair access in this city to get anywhere. And when I bring my stuff up and down stairs and those elevators are broken, you know, and I gotta haul my drums up 6 flights of stairs, you know, at least 120 stairs with 150 pounds, you know, well, luckily I've got arms and legs that I can employ. You know, what about people that don't? And you start to see things about the city and about the society.
The United States has been decided to be the greatest empire the Western world has ever seen. I said, why would you call us the empire? First we was a republic, to which it stood. Then we was democracy or capitalism, and now we're an empire. How many different things did the government change to since the beginning of the colonial days? Your colonial history states that it says to the republic for which you stand, you made us pledge allegiance all our life.
Yeah, but I think like it was a ruse anyway, though, right?
Yeah,
because even
ruse.
when it was a republic and stuff like that, they just wasn't saying it. And George Bush was one of those simple cats who just lets things slip.
Yeah,
Empire.
he was silly.
You know what I mean? He says
that was
stuff
a
like
bad
that.
mistake.
But like you look since 1776, you look at the history of this country. In total, they've been at war for like 214 years out of the total. You know what I mean? 214 years they've been at war, and like 21 years they've been at peace. Actually, it's always been an industry for them. This is how they make money. This is how they progress. You know what I mean? By war, by captivity.
Oh yeah, that's
the same way the Roman Empire did it, through captivity. The same way, you know, countless other empires have risen and fell.
The structure between the United States and a place like Israel, they got tri-citizenship, man.
Yeah.
Tri-citizenship. They can go from Poland to Israel to the United States with no problem at all. They're actually running our politics all the way through. All right? They want us to protect them in the middle of the chaos that they put themselves in, fighting against Islamists. That's not something we should be, as a people, we should be paying attention. We gotta pay attention to our young. You know what I'm saying? And like he said, diligently to the social democracy thing. The moment Obama said it out his mouth, that, oh, maybe we should go back to the 1948 resolution between Israel and Palestine.
Flipped on them.
They went crazy. They was getting ready to assassinate the brother.
There's a cats on Wall Street who got that $1 trillion like bailout and like throwing shit into like security funds for just in case and not using that money productively. That's robbing. That's stealing from the people, right? That's stealing from the people. So when my homie wants to run up and chase Manhattan with the president's mask on, I ain't glad at him, but I ain't mad at him. I'm like, yo, there's other cats doing this too.
The state is actually designed to eradicate all family members and their family, and each individual family. Like, you know, you figure like, if they put you on social services and social public services, if they put your sister in reform school, your brother in reform school, it's all done by the state itself. You know, he said that the state is the worst enemy of the people, basically. So if they could force you to stay on welfare, they will. When they do these private medical firms, like Health First, Child Plus, all these things, these dudes actually are using the doctorship to just gain income off your benefits card. Like you say, for instance, you get Medicaid, you get Medicare. All right, so the big hospitals can't handle the multitudes of people coming in. So they put doctors from private services, doctors who just went through their internship, give them private offices on the street, and put a payload of people directly from the doctor's office into the private insurance company. The private insurance company is making millions like that. Because every time they can get you to attend to a medical insurance company like Health First, Health Plus, Child Plus, you know, and these things of these natures, these are doctors that don't really have the real practice skills. It just came out, you know what I'm saying, from med school.
It's a similar thing, like, so that's the...
They're actually forcing us into these private insurance funds, the elderly.
It's an industry, like
Yeah,
their main goal is not our well-being. Their main goal is to make that dollar. Same thing with the prison industrial complex as well. Like, they want people on death row. They want people in to fill these cells. They want people there because these people are making the money.
It first took place in New York State. The name of the prison industrial program started out as Courtcraft.
Yeah.
It started out with metal furniture, soap shops, broom shops, eyeglass shops, and now every prison in the state of New York is already established as a Courtcraft there. So when you go into one of them, oh, you got 20 years. Would you like to go in prison industry and make extra money? They ain't paying you nothing. They ain't paying you nothing. You look at, just like he said, state prisons. If you look at the new, like I said, I always harp on this subject, the DNA data index.
They just passed the law.
They just passed the
law. Whenever
now,
you get locked up now, your DNA is cataloged.
How much percentage of Latin and black men is in the maximum, medium, and minimum security jails in the state? 99% of us is Latin and black. So whose DNA are you getting? Just Latin and black.
What we want to do with this movement is redefine terms that have been imposed on us to define us, like black, brown, welfare, poor. Exactly. So we want to take these words and flip it around and use it as forms to empower ourselves. And the only way we can do that is if we create a political consciousness within our community. So in order to do this, we think it's important to use an informal education.
I think informal education is like the only education of any worth for the kids in the hood right now, right? With the public school systems and the standardizations of the learning environment, and they're not learning anything in school, they're not being coached in school. So I think that it's immensely important to have a sort of alternative way of educating ourselves in the hood. And we try to do it through music. Y'all trying to do it, you know, with the work y'all doing right now in school, and just trying to get out of school so y'all can continue doing work in the community and having that direct influence. Yo, catch me on Facebook all day. We can use Facebook and we can use YouTube as a way to teach the youth, as a way to move them forward mentally in a progressive manner. And I think it's immensely popular and it cannot be ignored. And I think for the most part it's not being ignored. I think all the youth that are working right now is using this to their advantage. It's a beautiful thing, and I think you can reach so many people around the world that it sort of starts to dissolve that space that I spoke about earlier about people being so spread out around the planet or around the city. It's like this internet, right, virtually, use it as a place to centralize money on PayPal. Use it as a place to centralize ideas on a Facebook page or something.
I sit the young men that's out there that's victimable to being convicted illegally in the state, and I sit there and I teach them the law. And I teach them how to shepherdize cases. And I teach them what landmark decisions to use to keep themselves from being incarcerated. Stuff like that has to be done. We got to sit by word of mouth, like you said, alternative education. You know what I'm saying? We got to have alternative to their educational system, because a lot of the theories that they put forth was like, you know, kind of had a slant.
I mean, if you look at poor as being like, you gotta flip it, right? Like, look at poor as being an absence of greed.
Right.
Look at poor as being like wealthy in other regards, and family, and you know, just knowledge of culture, and the proximity to culture. And I think that's how he flipped. It's like the welfare poets, right? It's like when people think of welfare, it's automatically, the state system that poor people are on, and if you're poor, you're not doing well. Why? Because in capitalism, we need to succeed, and once you don't succeed financially, it's over. You're on welfare, homie. And like, we're the welfare poets, because that's a word. That's like, we're looking out for the welfare of our people, the well-being of our community. And in that same light, we need to flip other words, and we need to also like maybe villainize the word rich. And what does that mean? Does that mean the exploiter and the oppressor?
I challenge any white person in America to say they don't have white privilege, you know, and it's something that I think that we as Caucasians like just need to just accept. I mean, not that people haven't accepted it, but you know, it's not the easiest thing for people to say, to single themselves out and say, yeah, because of the color of my skin, society treats me better and more important. Acknowledge that. You know, people aren't doing that. They're not. And you know, I have no judgment on that, but I do hold myself to a high standard of being able to communicate and understand what's going on around me. That's all I want to do, is synthesize this world that I live in, because I didn't make the shit. You know what I mean? We didn't make the shit, but here we are, all up in the shit. And I would like to see ourselves kind of work out this conversation. White privilege is something that has to be recognized within oneself in order for you to understand that some other people got a whole other experience, and maybe you got 2 seconds to think about that, to understand that. And I guess I'm here to say that I don't want to run away from the conversation. I embrace the conversation. Let's have this conversation, because if we can have this conversation about music, no skin off my or your back, then maybe we can have a conversation that could lead us to a place where we can start figuring out what's wrong with us and why little black boys are getting shot for no reason everywhere. Because it could just be anybody. It doesn't even have to be a little black boy. It could be anybody of color in this country. So as a white person, it's really important that, you know, I be one of the first people to be open to having the conversation.
With us, the economic strength is so like thinly dispersed between so many people that it's hard to sort of centralize something and move forward and build something on that, and because we're so spread out.
Right.
And they continue to do this, right, with gentrification in a barrio. When you're together, they're gonna continue to disperse people. Together you can have something. Once they disperse you, it's too thin. The resources are too thin. And I think it's coming together. I think it's joining these or creating credit unions. And if you want to work within the capitalist like system, you have to be able to get your hands on money
work a lot with Yemenis people.
Or, you know, start thinking in a more social light, like welfare codes say. This should be a socialist economy.
But it's a conversation everybody needs to be a part of. Is to make sure that we're listening. Because I'm not really sure how much power I have to erase those margins, erase those delineations, you know, erase those things that are meant to separate us. But I think if I can listen and have the conversation, and we can all have the conversation, then I feel like we can take that next step towards being less marginalized, less segregated, less different from one another. But what keeps us different is our ignorance of one another. That's it. Ignorance is the great dividing line. And if you don't analyze, if you don't start to think about, you know, what is it that I'm going through? What's my position in this world? And what is your position in this world? And I'd like to hear what your position is in this world. I'd like to set aside my preconceived notions and my judgment to just listen. We don't really do that. You know, there's just so much hate and mistrust.
It's diligence. You gotta be diligent, right? You overfeed goldfish, they're gonna eat until they pass out. It's like that, you know what I mean? People will do that. That's in their nature to try to just grab shit up. I'm gonna grab shit up. And depending on who grabs shit up is theft or it's capitalism, right? If white people do it, for the most part, it's capitalism. But when exploitation comes from somewhere else, it's usually seen as theft or some sort of, you know, negative action. Look at Cucino and, you know, the looters, where some were looting and some were finding items. Oh, social democracy. Yes, so if you don't, it has to be diligence, because if you can't perceive what you would lose, then you would not, you know, you can't understand and appreciate what you have. Right. You look at Cuba, and there's so much that's spoken about Cuba, but if you look at the other countries in the Caribbean situation, with the exception of Puerto Rico, there's so much disparity on these islands. And at least in Cuba, there's like, you can't go to the supermarket and buy 7 pork chops, homie, but you're gonna have one tonight, you know what I mean? You're gonna be able to eat one tonight, and so is your neighbor, and the cat down the street, and the cat in the other pueblo, and the cat across the island. When in DR, it's not like that, because one village can have food and the other village can be in total famine. And across the border in Haiti, there is nothing to eat, and there's no trees, right? And for what it's worth, you can't have the new 2012 Mitsubishi Galant, but you can have a sense of security and peace and education and healthcare. And I think we need to look at examples like that, glaring examples that exist just 90 miles from us. People who are upper middle class cannot even attain what rich is, and they're always trying to reach for it. But when you look at someone who's poor, it's like, wow.
And they got unreachable. Some of these young cats got unreachable goals. I be saying that's not the gift, man. I mean, you poor, all right, fine. You know what I'm saying? I'm not mad at you, poor. You know, I'm not mad at you for being poor. I have nothing against that. You know what I'm saying? I would never try to put myself in a place with LeVon James or somebody like that, like these young people. And we gotta actually be diligent in showing them not to do that. to themselves. Because that's what's actually causing them to actually destroy one another. I got better sneakers than you. I got a better ride than the materialism.
And that's what capitalism does. And I think that's what you was asking about before, like how do we exist in this capitalist society, because we are, like, we have to try to change it. To try to exist in it is gonna like lead ultimately to the destruction of a lot of black and brown people, like it has been, right? Because capitalism is what? Capitalism is what? Is making money, right? And it's like it's always about exploitation. It's never about being the nice guy. So yes, people are selling drugs, of course, because we can make the maximum amount of money in the time. It's like I'm gonna flip it.
We're gonna capitalize on everybody around.
Ultimately, how do we continue to push forward and make some room for all of us? Because right now there's no room. It's just lines, you know. I'm stuck in this box, line. Another marginalized line, and here's another line. You know, I'm like, you know, I want to do this with the conversation, you know. I want to skate all around it, erase all these lines.
1, 2, 3 in the place to be provided by me is the legendary MIC. Welfare P. Yo, I clutch the microphone, never fear. Sun brings atmosphere, breath of life into this battlefield. We call it Barrio Harlem. White folks is trying to steal like Sunset, South Bronx and San Juan Hill. Until my homies island side, they're holding San Juan still. The murder of Philly Bertho made it oh so real. For young Mike, tenderfoot in the books, chill with crooks till I changed my look and focused on what they took from my collective people. Fucking dogs, birthed in evil. Miguelito learned logistics of acquiring a Desert Eagle. The fire back, Garvey inspired my raps. Ray told me my stuff was dope. I assume what I had was crack, so I hustle hard. We got the flow, run with us. Never stepped on our hand homies heat so they could bundle up when it's cold out. Why pedal dust for a couple bucks to the same knuckle fucks? Getting high since before the Knicks sucked totally. Remember ghetto living molded me. Not to mention the way my mama sat me down and scolded me when I was out of line. She said that I was born to shine, the last Harlem sun. So if your light is dim, follow mine. I'm from where we all know the pose is loco. Used to be where they don't go. Now we got the blocks they run for. Luxury condos, the trumpets blare. I bring the bass like a tuba. Muslim, Christian, or Juno disrespect. I'm Yoruba. I run trick plays so we can fool ya. Ray goes Haiti, I go Cuba. Quarterback sneak nigga, apply right through your Harlem maneuvers forever. PR side will mess you up and leave you by the FDR drive.